Sup nerds, Wired here, and today we're going to continue our Dragon Age 2 Warrior Guide. This is by far probably the most important video so far. This video is going to pretty much highlight your companions, their abilities, skills you should get, their attributes you should invest in, your skills, your attributes, and also all the whole party's tactics. We're going to be setting up a lot of stuff, so I am going to try to do this in 1 to 2 videos, maybe 2, because because there's so much that we have to do that I doubt we're going to be able to fit it in just one video. But we'll try to get as much done as we possibly can right now. First thing I want to do is actually just go down the line of characters, and we're going to have all our characters drink 1 Maker's Side Potion to respec them completely. That's why we bought these Maker Side Potions before, because we want our characters to basically have the optimal stats and abilities to continue with. Now, I always like to start at the end first, so I'm going to start with Anders. Anders is going to be our defensive support mage, and he's not going to be doing any damage whatsoever. Only auto attack damage, you know, basic attack and stuff like that, and most of the time he'll probably be putting buffs or healing instead of attacking anyway. Now, some of the things you have to realize when you do use your companions is the companions do not require certain stats to wear equipment. They will require certain stats to wear a weapon, but not armor and things like that. So, that means we can skimp a little bit on magic, especially on our healer. He's not going to be dealing damage, and healing is not affected by the magic spell at all. It doesn't increase the healing done, it doesn't increase any of that. So really, we only need enough magic on Anders to basically use his best staff for that section of the game. So at this point, I like to give Anders around 19 magic. Or 18. You can skimp on it and get 18, but I like to go 19. Obviously, the healer's most important abilities and, healer's most important stats is willpower. Willpower controls your mana, how much mana you're going to have in your mana pool, and basically, the more mana he has, the more spells he can cast without being out of mana. So, willpower I like to keep at around 19 to 20 at this point. But we're going to go at 19, and next level we'll take it to 20 and take magic to 20. Constitution, you're going to want some of this because you don't want this guy dead. Templar Hunters, Assassins, Rogue-type enemies, these all will focus directly on Anders because he will have the lowest armor in your party. That's why it's imperative to keep him alive. So you want to give him health as well. He needs to have Constitution. He needs to be able to survive the backstab. He needs to be able to survive the common mage spells that are going to be casted, AoEs, things like that. And always watch out for your AoEs. You want to try your best to move your characters out of the area of effect. Okay, so we're going to go with 5 points in Constitution. Currently level 7, and my stats are going to look like 19 magic, 19 willpower, and 15 Constitution. Now, you can do it your own way, however way you want to. It really doesn't matter. You can skimp a little bit more on magic if you don't care about his damage. But I do want him to support me in some way. I don't want him just to be standing around a lot. So we're going to start investing more and more in magic as time comes, so he can use better staffs for each act. But right now, 19 is plenty. That is to use all the basic staffs you're going to pick up right now. So definitely invest only 19 points in magic at the least. And, okay, enough about his stats, which aren't the big deal. The real big deal about your healer is, where do I put my skill points? Healer is one of the easier guys to spec into. All you really need to know is have a knowledge of what can he cast while he's in healer mode, which means what can he cast while he is channeling Panacea. Panacea is basically a requirement for the healer class. If you want to get any of the good spells for healing, meaning Resurrection, which is called Regroup, and of course the Area of Effect heal that heals all your guys, you're going to need this. So Panacea is first priority in the healer tree. Secondly, our most important tree and where most of our points will be going is obviously Creation. Creation is the primary buff and healing tree for mages, and it pretty much just benefits the whole party. Now, obviously, you're going to want to take the heal ability because he's not much of a healer with no healing abilities. I always take the secondary upgrade to that, because 80% health regen is better than 40%. Now I know it says 80 here, but that's because we got the buff. If you didn't have the buff, per se, it would only be 40, see? Okay. Next up, the next important skill in the healer tree is actually Heroic Aura. This buffs the whole party, gives them defense, attack, and when you upgrade, it's going to give damage and crit chance. This is good for everyone in the party, especially your warrior. So this is a very important ability to pick up for him, and he should always be channeling this. Now, as I told you earlier, if you don't feel like respeccing or you don't want to spend the gold on respeccing, whenever your healer hits level 4, you should start doing what I call saving up points. Start saving your points, because level 7 is a real nice sweet spot for healers, and he has plenty of cool abilities that you need to pick up at level 7 to stay competitive right now. First is the upgrade to Heroic Aura. You're going to want to get this for sure. As soon as you hit level 7, this should be highlighted. Next is Haste. Haste is by far his best buff ability, as it increases the attack speed for the whole party by 50%. Also has the upgrade that leaves it to 20 seconds. This is another high priority ability, especially if you want to play Anders as a pure buffer, where he will be pretty much keeping haste up all the time for your warrior, and especially if you're playing the Berserker warrior, who will also get a nice 50% bonus just from his barrage ability. So if you put all the bonuses together, you'll be swinging so fast you won't even believe it. So we're always going to get haste. Haste is very important too. Now you have 2 abilities left, and you're not supposed to. You're only supposed to have 1 left. Now you have a few decisions here. This is all you need. This is really, really all you need right now, are these abilities. However, you're going to have an extra ability, which means you're ahead of the curve. And because you're ahead of the curve, you're going to be able to put another ability point anywhere you want. Now, there's some key places I would put it, personally. One is Mind Blast. Why Mind Blast? Well, Mind Blast also helps keep enemies off Anders. You should set his tactics, which I'll discuss later when we're actually on that subject, but Mind Blast is by far one of the better abilities you should pick up. Has a low cooldown and it costs very little mana. Or you can get a little ahead of yourself and go with the Glyph of Paralysis. This is another protection-based ability, but has a long cooldown and it costs more mana. However, it does affect all enemies and not just enemies in the range. Or you can get Vengeance. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I get Vengeance? That doesn't seem to synergize with my class at all. And you'd be absolutely correct. This basically turns Anders into a Blood Mage. But we're not ever going to be using it. Never. We'll never be using this ability, Vengeance. Instead, we're getting Vengeance simply to unlock this ability, Swift Justice. This gives you a 20% reduction in cooldown for all your spells. This gives him the ability to not only cast Haste way more often. Instead of a 60-second cooldown, Haste is a 48-second cooldown. And that can actually matter when you're fighting boss characters and things like that. It also sets your heals to a much lower cooldown. As you can see, this is a 50-second cooldown. So this would be a 40-second cooldown with the ability, and things like that. So you definitely want to invest in that. That's a very important ability. The more he can heal and the more he can paralyze and things like that, the better he's going to be. Otherwise, he's just going to be standing around for a while. So you have a decision to make here. You can go with Mind Blast. You can go with Glyph of Paralysis. Or you can go with Vengeance and get a head start. Now, next level, I suggest taking 8 allies at level 8 for sure. But we'll discuss that when we get to level 8. So you have some choices here. I personally like to go with Mind Blast right now. You can also get elemental weapons if you want, but Meryl's going to be channeling that anyway, so we don't want that. We want Mind Blast. Or we can go with Glyph Paralysis or this. So I'm tired of repeating myself, so we're going to go with Mind Blast. Okay. Next up is our primary DPS Mage, and she is going to be spec'd as a Blood Mage with Primal abilities, which is my favorite Mage tree, the Primal tree. It really makes you feel like a Lightning caster and stuff like that. But this character we are going to want to buff magic on. Now, there is a trick to this character. Willpower. We're going to look at willpower. You're going to think to yourself, man, I need to invest in willpower for her. Her willpower is pretty friggin' low. You don't need any willpower. 0 leave willpower at base. Leave it at 12. This is the lowest she could possibly have willpower, so leave it there. We're going to invest all our points only in Constitution and Magic. She's a Blood Mage, and therefore we don't need willpower. I always like to go about 24 Magic with her, especially at the start, to keep her damage up, and we like to go the rest in Constitution. Very simple, because you have to remember, she's a Blood Mage, so her mana pool is actually her life pool. So the more life you have, the more spells she can cast. Alright, our first spell we're going to look at is called Blood of the Frenzy. This is basically her go-to spell. She's got to have this, otherwise your build is useless. This turns her into a Blood Mage, pretty much. That's all it does. Reserves 50% of her mana, and whenever she casts a spell, it costs life instead of mana. It also makes her immune to conventional healing, which means Anders isn't going to be able to heal her, neither are potions unless she deactivates this. But that'll all be handled and discussed in the tactics section after we put our abilities in. Now, there's a few ways you can build Meryl. You can build her with a very early DPS mindset, or you can build her with more of a control mindset early on. I prefer that she starts doing damage right off the bat. So the first thing I'm going to get from her is her primary attack ability, Stone Fist. Stone Fist is a low cooldown ability. It has great synergy with some of the other spells that you're going to be using. It does do extra damage to disorients when you upgrade it, and that will come from when we give Varric some disorienting abilities, she'll be able to combo that in. But the primary combo ability she's going to be using is obviously Chain Lightning. I like to pick up Chain Lightning early as well. And you should get the bonus effect of Chain Lightning, for sure. Now you have a couple other things you can do. Personally, Rock Armor is really, really good right now for her. This will keep her alive way longer, and she'll have to not switch out of her blood mode as often when this is on. Remember, you can have as many sustained abilities on as you want with her. She's never going to be using mana. So we're going to actually just get Rock Armor for the 25% bonus of armor. Now, you have another decision to make. You can go with more offensive abilities. I personally get Elemental Weapons right now because it does help your damage at this point in the game and will make most encounters easier. So we're going to put one in Elemental Weapons. Basically, all it does is grants bonus damage to your weapon swings based on the element she is using. So it is based on what staff she's using. So if she's using a fire staff, it's going to do added fire damage. If she's using a cold staff, it's going to do added cold damage, things like that. Okay? Now we still have 1 point left. Now you have some decisions to make here. The primal tree is your primary tree. This is going to be the tree you're going to be using the whole game. I don't suggest getting these AoE abilities like Tempest and stuff like that unless you're playing on hard or less. On Nightmare, all you're going to do is kill your party with those abilities because they do have a large, wide range. And they do pull a lot of aggro, which will make it harder to keep Meryl alive. So instead, we're going to... well, you have two questions you want to ask yourself. Do I want more control abilities, or do I want to not get hit? It's as simple as that. But me, I don't care because Varric's going to be able to handle most of the threat at this point. So I always go with Spirit Bolt. Spirit Bolt is a very low cooldown spell. It does a good amount of damage, and it has a bit of a knockback ability. The reason why it's so good is because the cooldown is so low, 10 seconds. That is extremely, extremely low for a mage spell. Most mage spells, as you will see, usually have a huge amount of cooldown, 20, 25 seconds. But Spirit Bolt is really quick to cooldown. An example, this has 15-second cooldown, and this right here is a 20-second cooldown. So if we want her to be able to cast spells consistently on a constant basis, we're going to need one 10-second cooldown, one 15-second cooldown, and one 20-second cooldown. Because by the time you're done casting the 10-second cooldown again, the 15-second is ready. And by the time the 15-second is ready, the 20-second is going to be ready soon after that. So we're going to have an endless chain of her doing damage. Damage, 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 damage. So that's why I invest my point in Spirit Bolt. Okay, and that completely finishes Meryl's abilities. We're going to go over it one more time just so you guys can see.